Captive Hearts by Celeste King.
In a world crawling with elves, orcs, vampires, and even humans.
Who would have considered looking to the sky for something that would do more than crawl?
For a beast that can fly.
Dragons have lived on Fower Island for centuries, shielded by the glamour put in place to separate their world from the rest of Protheka.
But with a surge of uncontrollable power, the glamour is torn. Dragons are exposed to the worlds of Protheka and all that live within.
And it's time for them to adapt.
Read or listen to the uncut, ad-free version of this audiobook by snagging it from worldsofprotheka.com. And make sure that you don't miss a single detail of this remarkable story.
Use promo code YouTube30 for a 30% discount on all digital products, including audiobooks, ebooks, and bundles.
Now, you're listening to Celeste King's Captive Hearts.
Chapter 1. Lyra. You girl, come here. The arrogant boom of Master Vicar's voice penetrates my skull. My entire body lurches, nerves jumping from the sudden attention, and I snap my eyes up from the floor. His cold, grey stare regarding me as nothing more than a tool to carry out his will. Just as quickly, my gaze turns back toward the stone floor. Stare at them too, and they'll consider it a challenge. Yes, sir. Master Vicar snarls. Sir, have you learned nothing? A swift and unnecessarily strong smack lands across my cheek as the elf backhands me for my insolence. You are to address me as master, you worthless human. He hisses. It's clear he's trying to raise himself up in the eyes of his dinner guests. Well, don't just stand there. Bring me my wine. Without another thought, I scurry out of the dining room and into the kitchen. I can hear the foul, senseless things they say about me as I hurry off to fulfill his command. As I'm walking into the wine cellar, a sudden force grabs me and pulls me into a dark corner. My heart races as I'm jerked off balance, but before I can even think to scream, a hand clamps over my mouth. Shh, it's me. A voice whispers in my ear. I recognise the voice as Bryn's, another slave in the household. My heart rate slows, but only slightly. I'm still confused and scared. What are you doing? I whisper back, trying to keep my voice steady. Do you want to get out of here? Bryn asks, her voice barely audible. I'm taken aback by the question. Of course I want to get out of here, but I've never even considered the possibility before. I'm too stunned to respond. Do you want to escape from Master Vicar? Bryn reiterates, her voice more urgent this time. I hesitate, my mind racing with the implications of what she's suggesting. It's dangerous to even think about such things, let alone speak them out loud. Meet me in the garden shed when the moons are at their peak, Bryn says, before releasing me and disappearing into the darkness. I'm left standing there, alone in the dark corner of the wine cellar, my mind reeling. I don't know what to do. I want to escape, but I'm scared of the consequences. I don't know if I can trust Bryn, or if this is some kind of trap. But as I make my way back to the dining room, carrying the wine Master Vicar demanded, I can't help but feel a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there's a way out of this life of servitude. When I return to the dining room, Master Vicar barely acknowledges me as I pour his wine. I keep my head down and my eyes on the floor, trying to act as if nothing has changed. But inside, my mind is racing with thoughts of freedom and the possibility of escape. As the night wears on and the guests grow more and more rowdy, I can't help but glance at the window, watching as the moons slowly make their way across the sky. I don't know what the future holds, but I know one thing for sure. Tonight, I'll be meeting Bryn in the garden shed. I slip out of the slave quarters, my heart pounding in my chest. The moon is high in the sky, casting eerie shadows across the garden. I make my way to the shed, trying to stay hidden in the darkness. When I reach the shed, I see Bryn waiting for me. She looks nervous, her eyes darting back and forth. Did anyone see you? She asks, her voice barely above a whisper. No, I reply, trying to sound confident. I made sure no one was around. Bryn looks at me skeptically. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure, I say, starting to get annoyed. Why are you so paranoid? Bryn doesn't answer. Instead, she pulls something out of her pocket and holds it out to me. It's a necklace with a small pendant hanging from it. Take it, she says, her voice urgent. I hesitate. What is it? Just take it, Bryn insists. You have to take it with you. Why? I ask, my curiosity piqued. What is it? Bryn's expression turns serious. You either escape with it or you don't escape at all. I stare at her for a moment, trying to decide what to do. I don't like the idea of taking something without knowing what it is or why it's important. But at the same time, I don't want to jeopardize our chance at escape. Fine, I say, snatching the necklace from her hand. Bryn grabs a cloak from a nearby crate and wraps it around my shoulders. The rough fabric scratches against my skin, but I welcome the warmth it provides. She begins to explain her plan in hushed tones, her eyes darting around the shed as if expecting someone to burst in at any moment. You need to wait for my signal, she says, her voice barely above a whisper. When you see a light coming from the kitchen window, that's when you make your move. I nod, my heart pounding in my chest. I can feel the weight of the necklace around my neck, a constant reminder of the risk we're taking. Once you see the light, head to the northeast wall, Bryn continues. A tree fell during last night's storm, and the guards were too busy with the dinner party to take care of it. Climb the tree and head east toward the docks. I listen carefully, committing every detail to memory. I can feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins, my body preparing for the escape. But as Bryn continues to speak, I suddenly realise that she's speaking as though she isn't going to come with me. My heart sinks, and I can't help but ask, "What about you?" She hesitates, her eyes avoiding mine. "I can't come with you," she says, her voice barely audible. "I have to stay behind and create a distraction." I stare at her in disbelief. "But you'll be caught," I protest. "You'll be punished." She shakes her head. "It's a risk I have to take," she says, her voice firm. "But you have to go. You have to get as far away from here as possible. Wait for my signal." And just as quickly as before, Bryn disappears. My heart is racing, but I know that I have to do this. I have to be brave, for both of us. I do each of the steps as she said them. Wait for her signal. Climb the tree. Run toward the docks. North. No, east. I run as fast as I can, my feet pounding against the ground as I make my way towards the docks. I can hear the sounds of the city behind me, but I don't dare look back. I know that if I do, I might lose my nerve. Only, when I arrive, no one is there. Nobody is waiting for me like Bryn promised, which means I won't be able to escape. "Hurry up!" someone shouts from down the docks. "The captain wanted to be on the open sea long ago." "Yes, sir, this is the last crate. Sorry, sir, so sorry." I peer around the corner and spot the men as they load the last crate onto a ship that already has its masts drawn and ready. "This is it, Lyra. Your chance at freedom." Hand clutching Bryn's necklace. I wonder what exactly that means. I don't know where they're going, and I don't care. All I know is that my ticket to a new life was supposed to be gone already, and for some reason it's still here. I've never believed in fate, but as I sneak up the plank and dive behind a pile of sacks, I consider that tonight it might be on my side.
Chapter 2. Zoldryn. Look over there. I patrol the coast of Four Island, my wings slicing through the humid air. The sun dips below the horizon, casting an orange glow over the lush vegetation that covers the base of Bloodstorm Peak. The island's volcanic activity keeps the peak hot and covered in ash, but the surrounding area is a tropical paradise. My obsidian scales glint in the fading light as I scan the waters below. The magical barrier that once kept us hidden is gone, and now we must protect our home from unwanted visitors. Trade ships from other races occasionally pass by, drawn by the island's mysterious allure. I spot a ship in the distance, its sails billowing in the wind. It's too far away to cause any concern, but Vorak glides up beside me anyway, pointing in its direction. It used to be that only we could see them, but now, with the glamour torn and damaged, we run the risk of being discovered. What do you make of it? Vorak asks as we both come to perch on the treetops. Looks like a fishing boat to me, I say, my eyes narrowing as I study the vessel. No need to worry about it. Vorak shifts beside me, his wings rustling against the leaves. Still, we should report it to the Elder. You know how he feels about outsiders. Just the mention of the Elder's name makes my blood boil. He hoards resources and riches, leaving the rest of us to fend for ourselves. And now, with the barrier gone, he's more paranoid than ever. Fine, I grumble, launching myself into the air. I'll tell him. I soar toward Bloodstorm Peak, my wings beating against the wind. The heat from the volcano warms my scales as I approach the underground city. The tunnels are carved into the rock, leading to a vast cavern where the dragons reside. We aren't many, not anymore, but we still like to live grand. The heat from the lava caresses my scales as I land in front of the Elder's lair. The sight of the massive obsidian fortress never fails to fill me with awe. The intricate carvings and the sheer size of it all speak to the grandeur of our people. But as I approach, I am stopped by Nindra. Her eyes flicker with jealousy, and I can't help but feel a pang of guilt. She is a beautiful dragon, with her sleek, sinewy body and her obsidian scales that shimmer in the light. But she has never caught my eye. Zoldryn, she says, her voice laced with a hint of sultry. I have something to discuss with you. I pause, my shoulders drooping slightly. I know what she wants, and I know I can't give it to her. Mating is a sacred bond, and even if I was interested in her, it's one that is only allowed by the Elder. I'm busy, Nindra, I say, trying to keep my voice even. I need to see the Elder. Nindra's eyes narrow, and I can see the fire in them. She's a fierce dragon, one who will not take no for an answer. As quickly as they narrowed, Nindra's eyes return to their normal, seductive shape, and she sachets closer, trying to lend me her services. Zoldryn, let me help you relax after your patrol, she purrs, her voice dripping with honey. I ignore her and sigh, striding into the building. The Elder's lair is a maze of tunnels and chambers, each one more opulent than the last. The walls are lined with gold and jewels, a testament to his greed. I make my way to the throne room, where the Elder sits on his obsidian throne, surrounded by his loyal followers. He is a massive dragon, with horns that curl around his head like a crown. His scales are a deep, dark black, almost invisible in the dim light. Zoldryn, he growls, his voice echoing off the walls. What do you have to report? I bow my head in respect. There is a fishing boat off the coast, but it poses no threat. It's too far away to cause any concern. The Elder's eyes narrow, and I can see the suspicion in them. Are you sure? He asks, his voice low and dangerous. Yes, Elder, I say, trying to keep my voice steady. I saw it with my own eyes. The Elder nods, his expression unreadable. Very well, he says. Keep a close watch on the waters. We cannot afford to let any outsiders discover our riches. I can't help but feel a bitter taste in my mouth as I watch the Elder dismiss me with a wave of his hand. His obsession with hoarding riches is suffocating our people, and it's becoming harder and harder to ignore. As I make my way out of the throne room, I can't shake the feeling that there's more power to be had in the world. Power that could be used to expand the reach of dragons and defeat the Vraken, as the Hearthkeeper had designed us to do. But the Elder is too focused on his own treasure to see the potential in the world beyond our island. He's content to let our race dwindle, as long as he can continue to amass wealth. I love my treasure as much as the next dragon, and I'd die before parting with it. But there's something infuriating about the Elder's particular brand of selfishness. I clench my fists as I stride through the tunnels. It's infuriating to see our leader so blind to the needs of our people. As I emerge from the tunnels and take to the skies, I scan the horizon for any signs of danger. The fishing boat is still too far away to be a concern, but I can't shake the feeling that there's something else out there, something that could change everything for our people. I push the thought aside and focus on my patrol, my wings slicing through the air as I soar over the lush vegetation below. But even as I do my duty, I can't help but feel a growing sense of unease. There's more to the world than the Elder wants us to believe, and I'm determined to find it, even if it means going against the leader of our people.
Chapter 3. Lyra. The ship creaks and groans as it slices through the waves, the constant motion making it difficult to keep my footing. I've been hiding below deck for days now, surviving on scraps of food I've managed to steal from the crew's stores. It's not much, but it's enough to keep me going. I'm scavenging for my next meal when I hear a soft shuffling sound behind me. I freeze, my heart pounding in my chest. I'm not alone. Slowly, I turn around to find a young human slave boy staring at me with wide, frightened eyes. He's small and thin, his clothes little more than rags. He looks like he hasn't eaten a decent meal in weeks. "Please," I whisper, holding out my hands in a placating gesture. "I don't want any trouble. I'm just trying to find something to eat." The boy's eyes dart around the room, as if looking for an escape. He's clearly terrified, but there's something else in his expression too. Suspicion. "Who are you?" he asks, his voice barely above a whisper. "What are you doing here?" I hesitate for a moment, unsure of what to say. I can't tell him the truth, but I can't lie to him either. He's just a child after all. "I'm a stowaway," I admit, my voice barely above a whisper. I snuck on board in the hopes of finding a better life. The boy's eyes narrow, and he takes a step back. "You're a runaway slave," he says, his voice filled with disgust. I flinch at his words, feeling a sudden stab of guilt. I was born into slavery, taken from my parents and sold to a wealthy elven family. I've never known anything but a life of work and obedience. "Please," I say again, my voice pleading. "I don't want to cause any trouble. I just need some food." The boy hesitates for a moment, his expression softening slightly. But then he shakes his head. "I can't help you," he says, his voice firm. "If the elves find out you're here, they'll kill us both." My heart sinks as I realise he's right. The elves are not known for their mercy, especially when it comes to runaway slaves. I'm on my own. But before I can even begin to think of a plan, the boy's expression changes. His eyes widen in fear, and he takes a step back. "They're coming," he whispers, his voice barely audible. "You have to hide." I don't need to be told twice. I dart behind a nearby crate, my heart pounding in my chest. I can hear the sound of footsteps approaching, the low murmur of elven voices. And then suddenly, the boy is standing in front of me, his small body trembling with fear. "I found her," he says, his voice shaking. "She's hiding behind the crates." The rough hands of the dark elf crewmen grab me, pulling me out from my hiding spot. I struggle against their grip, but it's no use. They're too strong. They drag me up onto the deck, where the cold wind bites at my skin. I'm surrounded by leering faces, their eyes raking over my body with a hunger that makes my stomach turn. "Look what we found," one of them sneers, his voice dripping with malice. "A little human runaway." The others laugh, their crude suggestions for what to do with me making my skin crawl. I try to keep my head down, my eyes fixed on the wooden planks beneath my feet. But then I feel a hand on my chin, forcing me to look up. It's the ship captain, his smug smile making my blood boil. "Well, well," he says, his eyes roaming over my body. "What do we have here?" I try to pull away, but his grip tightens. He leans in close, his breath hot on my face. "I've always had a thing for human women," he whispers, his voice low and dangerous. "Merchant life doesn't provide many opportunities for companionship." I feel a shudder of revulsion run through me. I know exactly what he's implying, and the thought of it makes me want to vomit. But I can't let him see my fear. I have to keep my wits about me if I'm going to get out of this alive. "Please," I say, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. "Let me go. I won't cause any trouble." The captain laughs, a cruel sound that sends chills down my spine. "Oh, I don't think you understand, my dear. You're not going anywhere." He leans in closer, his lips brushing against my ear. "In fact, I think you're going to be very useful to me." I feel a surge of panic rise up in my chest, but I force it down. I can't let him see how scared I am. I have to find a way out of this. But before he can act on his words, a sudden change in the sky draws everyone's attention. Rumbling storm clouds roll in as the wind picks up, whipping my hair up around me. "It seems we'll have to entertain each other later, human bitch." The captain's laughter rings in my ears as the crew throws me into the brig, the heavy door slamming shut behind me. I'm left in darkness, the only sound the howling wind and the crashing waves. I huddle in the corner, my heart racing as I try to make sense of what's happening. The storm seems to be growing stronger by the minute, the ship creaking and groaning as it's tossed about on the waves. I can hear the crew shouting orders above me, their voices barely audible over the roar of the storm. I know they're doing everything they can to keep the ship afloat, but I can't help feeling like I've been abandoned. I wrap my arms around myself, trying to keep warm. The brig is cold and damp, the air heavy with the scent of salt and seaweed. I can feel the ship pitching and rolling beneath me, my stomach lurching with every movement. I close my eyes, trying to calm myself. I can't afford to panic, not now. I need to stay focused, to think of a way out of this. But it's hard to think clearly when all I can hear is the storm raging around me. I feel like I'm trapped in a nightmare, unable to escape the darkness that surrounds me. I don't know how long I sit there, lost in my thoughts. It feels like hours, but it could just as easily be minutes. Time seems to have lost all meaning in the chaos of the storm. Suddenly, I hear a loud crash above me. The ship lurches violently, sending me sprawling across the floor. I scramble, looking for somewhere safe but only spotting a chest on its side, open with more gold than I could ever dream of spilling out. The last thing I hear is the sound of wood splintering, the screams of the crew as they're tossed about like rag dolls. And then nothing.
Chapter 4. Zoldryn. Flying patrol with Vorak is a welcome distraction from the politics of the island. The wind whistles past my scales as we soar above the crashing waves, the salty scent of the sea filling my nostrils. Vorak and I exchange a grin, the thrill of the hunt coursing through our veins. Suddenly my keen eyes spot something unusual on the shore. A shipwreck, its mast snapped in two, lies half submerged in the water. My heart races with excitement. Treasures from the human world are rare and valuable on Fuer Island. "Vorak, look!" I call out, gesturing towards the wreckage with my wing. He follows my gaze and lets out a low growl. A horde. We dive towards the shore, shifting into our dark elf forms as we land on the sand. The ship groans and creaks, its timbers splintered and broken. We approach cautiously, our bare feet sinking into the wet sand. Vorak's eyes light up as he spots a glint of gold among the debris. "I knew it!" he shouts, already digging through the wreckage with his claws. My fingers brush against something solid, something that doesn't belong in the wreckage of a ship. I dig around it, uncovering a small chest. The lock is broken, and as I lift the lid, my eyes widen in surprise. A small human female lies curled up inside, her chest rising and falling with each breath. She's unlike any human I've ever heard of, with light blonde hair that shimmers in the moonlight and eyes that glow like emeralds. A strange magical hum radiates from her, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Aren't humans supposed to be hideous creatures? Dreadfully plain and ugly, I've been told. Never served on a bed of gold and jewels like this one. Vorak comes over, his eyes widening in greed as he sees the girl. "What have you found, Zoldryn?" he asks, his voice dripping with envy. "She's mine," I say firmly, my hand protectively covering the chest. "I found her first." Vorak scowls, his claws digging into the sand. "You can't just claim her for yourself. She's a valuable prize, and she should be shared among the dragons." I glare at him, my eyes flashing with anger. "I found her, and I'm not giving her up. You can have your share of the treasure, but she's mine." Vorak grumbles, but he knows better than to challenge me. He stalks off, muttering under his breath. I watch him go, my heart pounding in my chest. I don't know what it is about this girl, but there is something important, something powerful. Vorak calls out from further down the beach, his voice tinged with excitement. "I found another survivor." I rumble a warning, my voice echoing across the water. "Don't harm them, Vorak. They may be useful." Vorak's eyes gleam with excitement as he suggests telling the Elder about our discovery. "Think of the rewards, Zoldryn. We could be heroes." I clench my jaw, my protective instincts flaring up at the thought of handing the girl over to the Elder. "No," I say firmly. "They'll simply kill them like all the others who have washed up on shore." Vorak looks taken aback. "We must tell the Elder, Zoldryn." I stare down at the frail human, my mind racing with conflicting thoughts. On one hand, I've been dreaming of overthrowing the Elder for years, of taking my rightful place as the leader of the dragons. On the other hand, there's something about this girl that draws me in. I make my decision. Finding her gives me the right to use her magic as I see fit, no matter what the Elder rules. I will have to report the crash, but I won't be giving up my treasure. I lift her gently from the chest, cradling her in my arms. I can sense her power growing, fueling my own. It's intoxicating, like nothing I've ever felt before. I know that Vorak is right. It would be impossible to keep these outsiders a secret from the Elder or the rest of the clan. "If you wish to keep any of this treasure for yourself, you'd be wise to stash it away before the Elder claims it," I tell him. Vorak's eyes flare with that telltale golden gleam, and I know he understands what I'm asking. I've seen that look 1,000 times before, the one that says he's nearly as unhappy with our leader as I am. The Elder always gets his grubby claws on the prizes that wash up from the sea. Vorak nods, the truth in my voice not lost on him. I waste no time, quickly filling the chest with treasure of my own. Gold coins, precious gems, shiny cloths. I take what I can, making sure to leave enough room for the human girl. She's small, but I can't risk her being crushed under the weight of all this wealth. As I work, I can feel Vorak's eyes on me. He's curious, I can tell, but he doesn't ask any questions. He knows better than to question my decisions, especially when it comes to the treasure hoard. I'm the one who's been wanting this coup for years, after all. This is my moment, and I won't let anyone, not even the Elder, stand in my way. As I transform into my dragon form, the weight of the chest and the girl feels almost insignificant compared to the power surging through my veins. I spread my wings wide, feeling the wind rush past me as I take off towards Bloodstorm Peak.
Chapter 5. Lyra. No. I jolt awake, my heart pounding in my chest. The nightmare still lingers, a haunting image of a horned beast carrying me through the sky. I take a deep breath, trying to calm myself down, but as I move to stand, a sharp pain shoots up my leg. I look down and see a chain wrapped around my ankle, securing me to the bedpost. Panic sets in. Have we reached land already? Are they going to sell me into slavery again? I try to quiet my thoughts and take stock of my surroundings. The room is small and dimly lit, with a single porthole letting in a sliver of light. The bed I'm on is hard and uncomfortable, but at least it's better than the cold, damp floor of the ship's hold. I notice a tray of food on a small table next to the bed, but my stomach turns at the sight of it. I can't eat, not with the fear gnawing at me. I reach up and feel for the necklace Bryn gave me before we escaped. It's still there, hidden beneath my ragged tunic. I clutch it tightly, feeling a small sense of comfort from its presence. But what good will a necklace do against chains and slavery? I hear footsteps outside the door, and my heart races. Are they coming for me? I brace myself, trying to prepare for the worst. But the footsteps pass by, and I let out a sigh of relief. For now, at least, I'm safe. But for how long? I can't stay chained to this bed forever. I need to find a way to escape, to get back to Bryn and the others. I start to tug at the chain, trying to loosen it, but it's no use. It's too tight, too strong. I need a key or a tool, something to break the lock. I scan the room, looking for anything that might help. But there's nothing, just the bed, the table, and the porthole. I feel a wave of despair wash over me. I'm trapped, with no way out. The door creaks open and I freeze, my heart pounding in my chest. The monster from my nightmare stands before me, his horns casting a menacing shadow on the wall. I scream, but no sound comes out. "Silence!" he snarls, and I clamp my mouth shut, my whole body trembling. With a swift movement, he releases the chains and grabs my arm, dragging me outside. I stumble, trying to keep up with his long strides. The cool night air hits my face and I take a deep breath, trying to calm myself down. But it's no use. My mind is racing, trying to make sense of what's happening. As we walk, I can't help but stare at him. His dark skin, lithe frame, and long ears resemble my former dark elf master. But there's something different about him. His ears are longer, almost pointed, and he has thick black horns protruding from his forehead. And his eyes, they seem to glow, casting an eerie light on the path ahead. The more I look at him, the more I realise he doesn't have dark skin at all. He's covered in dark, almost translucent scales that make him look like a dark elf. But he's not. He's something else entirely. Something I've never seen before. I try to pull away, but his grip is too strong. He drags me through the tunnels, the space filled with a suffocating heat that brings beads of sweat to my forehead. "Where are you taking me?" I ask, my voice sounding pathetic even to me. Instead of answering, it only gives a disgusted glare in response. "Where are you taking me?" I ask again, my voice trembling. The horned being stops and turns to face me, his eyes narrowing into slits. "Silence, creature," he hisses, his voice low and menacing. I shrink back, my heart pounding in my chest. This isn't the same being from my dream. That one had a kind of twisted charm to him, a mischievous glint in his eye. This one is pure malice, his scales shimmering with a dark, ominous energy. He turns and continues down the tunnel, dragging me behind him. I stumble over the rough ground, my legs aching from the effort of keeping up. I try to pull away, but his grip is like iron. As we walk, I can feel the heat intensifying, the air growing thick and suffocating. Sweat drips down my forehead, stinging my eyes. I gasp for breath, my lungs burning with every inhale. I try to swallow the lump in my throat, but it's no use. My mind is racing with thoughts of what's to come. Is this my punishment for running away from Master Vicar? for daring to dream of a life beyond slavery. I look up at the horned being, his dark eyes boring into mine. He's so different from the elves I've known, so different from anything I've ever seen before. But is this what I deserve? Being dragged through tunnels, chained to a bed, facing an uncertain future. I can't help but feel like I'm being punished for something I didn't do. I think back to the night I escaped with Bryn's help. The way the stars shone in the sky, the way the wind felt on my face. It was the first time I had ever felt truly free. Now, it seems like that freedom was just an illusion. And then it hits me. I'm going to die. I'm going to die here, in these tunnels, at the hands of this horned being. I take a deep breath, trying to steady myself, and my hand automatically comes to rest over the necklace hiding beneath my clothes. Why was it so important that I take this with me? Why wasn't anyone at the docks like Bryn said there would be? If this necklace is so important, is there a way it can get me out of this?
Chapter 6. Zoldryn. I stand before the Elder in the shifter community, my heart pounding in my chest. The magical female is too valuable to lose, so I have no other choice but to convince them to spare the lives of the wreck survivors. We should spare these creatures, I say, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. Nindra glares at me, her eyes narrow to slits. They are not like us, she hisses. They do not belong here. I clench my fists, mastering my outrage. That is no reason to kill them, I reply. We are not savages. The Elder regards me with a cold, calculating gaze. And what would you have us do with them, Zoldryn? He asks. Let them live, I say, my voice firm. Nindra lets out a snarky scoff, crossing her arms. And do what? Take up more resources? I take a deep breath, searching for the right words to appeal to the Elder's devotion to our goddess. These humans may hold valuable intel about our enemy and the outside world, I say, my voice steady and confident. With the rip and the glamour, their knowledge could be useful to us. The Elder's eyes narrow, and I can see the wheels turning in his head. He's considering my words, weighing the potential benefits against the risks. Nindra scoffs again, her voice dripping with disdain. And how do you propose we extract this information from them? She asks. They are weak and frail, hardly capable of withstanding our interrogation methods. I grit my teeth, resisting the urge to snap back at her. Instead, I focus on the Elder, who still seems to be mulling over my proposal. We can be smarter, I say, choosing my words carefully. There are ways of extracting information without causing unnecessary harm. The Elder regards me with a thoughtful expression, and for a moment I think I've won him over. But then he turns to Nindra, his gaze cold and calculating. What do you think, Nindra? He asks. Do you believe these humans could be of use to us? Nindra hesitates, her eyes flicking between the Elder and me. I can see the conflict in her expression. She wants to please the Elder, but she also wants to see the humans suffer. I think Zoldryn has gone soft, she says, eyes gleaming. What a strange way to show your affection for someone. I square my shoulders and meet Nindra's gaze head-on. I have not gone soft, I say firmly. I'm simply being practical. The Hearthkeeper created us to rid the world of the Vraken, and yet we have been unsuccessful. These creatures have lived out in Protheka and are still alive. They could have valuable information to share on the Vraken and their weaknesses. Nindra scoffs, but I can see a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. And what makes you think they would willingly share this information with us? She asks. I never said it would have to be willingly, I reply. The Elder regards me with a thoughtful expression. This is an interesting proposition, Zoldryn, he says. But how do we know we can trust these humans? They are not like us. We can't know for certain, I admit. But we can take precautions. We can keep them under guard, and only allow them to speak to certain members of our community. We can also use our magic to detect any lies or deception." Nindra rolls her eyes. "This is ridiculous," she says. "We are wasting our time on these weak creatures when we could be focusing on more important matters." I clench my fists, feeling a surge of anger. "And what could be more important than finding a way to defeat the Vraken?" I ask. "They are a threat to all of us, and we cannot afford to ignore any potential advantage." The elder nods slowly. "Zoldryn makes a valid point, Nindra," he says. "Bring in the survivors for judgment." I let out a sigh of relief, grateful that the elder has at least agreed to see them. My only hope is that he doesn't sense the level of power in the human girl that I do. The chained survivors are brought forth, and my eyes immediately land on the frail human female. She looks even more fragile than before, her body trembling with fear as she struggles against her restraints. But despite her weak appearance, I can sense an immense power within her. It's like a beacon, drawing me in and making me wonder how such a pathetic creature could possess such strength. I study her closely, trying to discern the source of her magic. It's unlike anything I've ever felt before, a raw and untamed energy that seems to pulse through her very being. I can't help but feel a sense of awe and fascination, mixed with a healthy dose of caution. The elf sailor and the boy are brought forward as well, the only other survivor among countless corpses, but I barely spare them a glance. They're not important, not compared to the female. She's the one who could hold the key to my future reign, the one who can put me on the throne.
Chapter 7. Lyra. I stand before a sea of horned monsters, their eyes burning into me like hot coals. My heart races as I take in their features, each one more terrifying than the last. Well, they would be if not for the fact that many of them are as bare as the day they were born. It's the creature on the throne that truly terrifies. He's massive, with horns that curl like a ram's, and eyes that glow like molten gold. He's magnificent and terrifying all at once, and I can't help but feel like a mouse caught in the gaze of a hawk. I feel like I'm back on that ship, the storm raging around me as I cling to the chest for dear life. As I scan the room, my eyes land on a figure that sends a chill down my spine. It's the winged beast from my nightmare, its eyes locked on mine with an intensity that makes my knees weak. He is, but he isn't. The beast that carried me was a beast, but this is a man, sort of. His long black hair hangs down, doing nothing to hide the fact that he is as naked as the rest of the room. My cheeks flush with a new kind of heat when my eyes drop below his waist, and I realise that hardly anything would be able to cover something of that size. The creature on the throne speaks, his voice like thunder rumbling through the room. "Who are you, and why have you come here?" I swallow hard, trying to find my voice. I'm Lyra. I was on a merchant ship that was caught in a storm. I don't know how I ended up here. The creature's eyes narrow, and I can feel his anger radiating off of him in waves. "You lie. You are a spy, sent by our enemies to infiltrate our ranks." I shake my head frantically, trying to deny his accusations. "No, I swear. I don't know anything about your enemies." The beast from my dream steps forward, its eyes dark as it towers over me. "She speaks the truth," it says, its voice low and menacing. I can sense it. I'm starting to understand that it wasn't a dream at all. The creature on the throne regards the dream beast for a moment, before turning to address the rest of the room. "The survivors will be enslaved. They will serve us until they are no longer of use." A collective murmur ripples through the crowd of monsters, and I can feel the weight of their gaze on me. My heart sinks as I realise that my fate is sealed. I will be a slave once again. But before I can fully process my new reality, my dream beast steps forward. "I claim this one as my own," he says, his voice echoing through the room. I feel a jolt of electricity run through me as his eyes meet mine, He's as much a monster as the rest of them, but when he looks at me it isn't with disgust. But not everyone is happy with his claim. A female with tangling brown horns steps forward, her eyes blazing with fury. "You can't claim her," she snarls. "That's preposterous." My dream beast turns to face her, his expression cold and unyielding. "I can, and I will," he says. "The Elder has permitted it." The female's eyes narrow, and I can see the anger building inside of her. She's about to lunge at my beast when the creature on the throne, the Elder, speaks up. "Enough," he says, his voice like a whip cracking through the air. "Zoldryn has claimed the human as his own. She will serve him, and no one else." The female's face contorts with rage, but she doesn't speak again. Instead, she turns on her heel and storms out of the room. I'm left standing there, feeling like a piece of meat being fought over by two predators. But as I look into the beast's eyes, Zoldryn's eyes, I can't help but feel a sense of relief. At least I'm not dead. "Thank you, Elder." Zoldryn's cold voice sends a shiver down my spine as he thanks the Elder. I watch in awe as he strides over to me, his powerful form radiating an aura of dominance. He grabs the chains linking me to the human boy who had nearly gotten me killed, and with a show of impossible strength, snaps them in two. I gasp as he scoops me up in his arms, cradling me against his chest. His touch is gentle, yet firm, and I can feel the heat radiating off of him. I'm too stunned to protest, too overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events. As he carries me out of the room, I catch a glimpse of the other survivors being led away by the monsters. My heart aches for them, but I can't help feeling a sense of relief that I'm not among them. None of the others seem too keen on sparing us. As he leaps into darkness, lit only by the occasional flame, I realise I've simply traded one moment of slavery for another. Who knows what?
Chapter 8. Zoldryn. I lift Lyra into my arms, her touch sending a jolt of energy through me. It's as if her very presence amplifies my strength and magic. I can feel the power coursing through my veins, making my scales shimmer and my wings beat with renewed vigor. Oh. As I transform, Lyra's eyes widen in fear, but she doesn't struggle or try to escape. Instead, she clings to me, her fingers digging into my scales. It's a strange sensation, but not an unpleasant one. In fact, it only serves to fuel my determination to keep her safe and use her to my advantage. I launch into the sky, the wind rushing past us as we soar above the Obsidian Empire. The underground Obsidian City sprawls out below us, a maze of twisting tunnels with coves and towering spires carved from them. As we fly, Lyra remains stiff and silent, her gaze fixed on the flames. No doubt her human eyes can't see much with the sparse lighting. I can sense her fear, but there's something else there too. A spark of defiance, perhaps. It's intriguing, and I find myself wondering what she's thinking. We reach my lair, a secluded cave nestled on the outermost edge. It's a place of solitude and power, far removed from the politics and intrigue for the escape I often desire. As I land, Lyra's grip on my arm tightens, and I can feel her trembling. I can't help but admire her spirit. I've heard it's a rare quality in a human, and one that could prove useful in the days to come. With Lyra by my side, I may just be able to overthrow the Elder and claim the throne for myself. But first, I need to unlock the full extent of her powers. I transform back into my dark elf form, the glittering horde in my lair reflecting in Lyra's wide eyes. For a moment she seems to forget her terror, her gaze sweeping over the piles of gold and jewels. Then her eyes fall back on me, and a strange pinkness fills her cheeks. I can't help but find it amusing. What are you?" she asks, her voice barely above a whisper. "I am a dragon shifter," I reply, stepping closer to her. Lyra takes a step back, her eyes darting around the room as if looking for an escape. But there is none. She's mine now, and I intend to use her to my advantage. She says, her voice trembling. You are entirely naked. I chuckle at her naivety, glancing down at myself. Yes. I try to engage Lyra in conversation, but she remains guarded, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. So, Lyra, I say, trying to keep my voice casual, tell me about yourself. She hesitates for a moment before speaking, her voice barely above a whisper. There's not much to tell. I was born into slavery, and I've been a slave my entire life. I can see the pain in her eyes, and it stirs something within me. I want to comfort her, to tell her that she's safe now, but I know that would be a lie. She's not safe here. Not with me. But perhaps I can make her life a little easier. Lyra looks at me skeptically, and I can't blame her. She has no reason to trust me, not after everything she's been through. But I can't help but feel a twinge of disappointment. I'll need her to trust me if I have any hope of using her power to overthrow the Elder. After a moment of silence, Lyra speaks up again. What cleaning duties do you want me to begin with? I stare at her in confusion. Cleaning duties? My lair is fine. Lyra looks down at the ground, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. I'm sorry, I just assumed... I'm used to cleaning and cooking and... Seeing Lyra cower and apologize only fuels my anger. If I wielded the power that she so clearly possesses, I would never grovel before anyone. But then again, perhaps she's unaware of her own strength. Despite my rage, I find myself captivated by her abilities. All I desire is to experience the exhilaration it offers me. I can't help but wonder how she managed to keep such a potent force hidden for so long. It's almost as if she's been suppressing it, like a dragon shifter trying to hide their true nature. The thought intrigues me, and I can't help but feel a strange sense of kinship with her. As much as I want to lash out at her, I know that I need her trust if I'm going to harness her power. I take a deep breath, trying to calm the storm brewing within me, something I've never bothered doing before. Human, I say, my voice low and dangerous. You have no reason to apologize to me. You are my property now, and you will do as I say. She flinches at my words, but there's a fire in her eyes that I can't ignore. I stare at her in disbelief. How could someone with such power be so unaware of it? It's infuriating, and yet it's also strangely exciting. I can mold her into the weapon I need to overthrow the Elder.
Chapter 9. Lyra. I can't help but feel a sense of defeat as I find myself enslaved once again, this time in a hot, dark, and sweaty place. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and something else I can't quite place. I try to push down the panic rising in my chest, but it's no use. I'm trapped. Zoldryn, my new master. His long horns and obsidian-scaled skin nearly allow him to blend in with the dark surroundings. He's mean and grumpy, and I can't help but feel a sense of unease around him. Come to bed, human, he commands, his voice a low growl that sends shivers down my spine. I turn around and see him sprawled naked on a stone slab, his obsidian scales glinting in the dim light. My heart races as I take in his massive form, the muscles rippling under his skin. I wipe the sweat from my brow, trying to calm myself. I'm not sure that's proper for a master and slave, I say, my voice barely above a whisper. My heart sinks into the pits of my stomach as I realise the implications of his words. He's going to force me to have sex with him. I've heard of masters using their slaves as sex toys, but Master Vicar was never interested in me. I was too stupid for his liking, I suppose. Maybe that's why Bryn refused to run with me. He would have noticed the moment she was gone. I don't want to know what that feels like. I don't want to. Obey me, human, he shouts, his gravelly voice reverberating off the walls and echoing back to me like 1,000 commands. I can feel the weight of his words pressing down on me, making it hard to breathe. I cower onto the stone slab, laying as far from him as possible. I can feel the heat radiating off of his body, and it makes me feel even more uncomfortable. I close my eyes and try to block out the sound of his heavy breathing. As I lay there, I can't help but wonder what my future holds. Will I ever be free from this life of slavery? Or am I doomed to spend the rest of my days in the service of others? I try to push the thoughts out of my head, but they linger like a bad dream. To my relief, Zoldryn doesn't force himself on me. But his gaze bores into me as I tremble, and I can't help but feel like a mouse caught in the gaze of a hawk. The hard, cold slab beneath me is unpleasant, but I don't dare complain. I flinch as Zoldryn shifts closer, touching my arm and grasping my hand possessively. "You are mine now," he growls, sending a confusing thrill through me. His touch is rough and calloused, but there's a strange gentleness to it that I can't quite place. I try to pull my hand away, but he only tightens his grip. "What do you want from me?" I ask, trying to keep my voice steady. Zoldryn's lips curl into a smirk. "That's a good question, human," he says, "but I think we'll save that for another time." I curl up on the stone slab, trying to find some semblance of comfort in the cold, hard surface. But all I can feel is the weight of Zoldryn's gaze on me and the confusing mix of fear and excitement that courses through my veins. I don't know what the future holds, but I know one thing for sure. I'm not going to give up without a fight. Despite my fear, I find myself relaxing against Zoldryn's warmth. His heat is comforting, a stark contrast to the chill of the stone beneath me. I clutch my necklace tightly, feeling the smooth stones press into my palm. I can't help but feel a pang of guilt as I think about Bryn. She sacrificed herself so that I could escape, and now I'm right back where I started. Nothing has changed. I'm still a slave, still at the mercy of someone else's whims. I close my eyes and take a deep breath, trying to calm my racing thoughts. Maybe there's a reason why Bryn gave me this necklace. Maybe it's more than just a trinket. I run my fingers over the intricate design. It has to be if she was so adamant that I take it. A family heirloom, perhaps? I don't even know my family. The only parental figure I had were the slaves who raised me to be just as submissive as them. I wonder if they ever thought about escaping, if they ever felt the same fear and anger that I do now. But there's no use dwelling on the past. I need to focus on the present, on finding a way out of this situation. I take another deep breath, feeling the weight of the necklace in my hand. Maybe it's just a superstition, but I can't help but feel like it's giving me strength.
Chapter 10. Zoldryn. This one should go here. I watch Lyra as she moves around my lair, her slender fingers carefully picking up each of my treasures and placing them in neat stacks. It's a strange sight, this human woman handling my possessions with such care and attention. I can't help but feel a twinge of annoyance at the intrusion, but there's something about her that intrigues me. As I observe her, I can't shake the feeling that there's more to her than meets the eye. She emits a strange power that I can't quite put my finger on. It's not like anything I've ever felt before, and it's confusing as hell. How can a mere human possess such magic? I try to puzzle it out as I watch her, but she seems completely oblivious to her own abilities. It's frustrating, to say the least. If I'm going to use her to overthrow the Elder, I need to understand her power and how to control it. But if she doesn't even know she has it, how can I possibly do that? I decide that the only way to get answers is to get closer to her. I need to earn her trust, make her feel comfortable around me. Maybe then she'll reveal her true nature. I approach her slowly, trying not to startle her. "What are you doing?" I ask, my voice gruff. She jumps at the sound of my voice, dropping the trinket she was holding. "I'm just cleaning," she says, her voice trembling slightly. I raise an eyebrow. "Cleaning?" I repeat, looking around at the masterpiece that is my lair. It's not exactly the kind of place that screams cleanliness. She nods, her cheeks flushing slightly. Yes, I don't know. I can't help but feel a grudging respect for her. She's trying to make the best of a bad situation, and there's something admirable about that. But I can't let my guard down. Not yet. Reaching around her, I grab a dress made of shiny cloth material. I hold out the dress to Lyra, watching as her eyes widen in surprise. She takes it from me hesitantly, her fingers brushing against mine for a brief moment. I can feel a surge of her power wash over me, and I have to fight the urge to take a step back. "Put it on," I command, my voice gruff. Lyra's cheeks flush pink again, and she looks around the room nervously. "Right here?" she asks, her voice barely above a whisper. I nod, returning to perch on my stone bed. I can't help but feel a twinge of irritation at her hesitation. Does she not understand that I am her master now? That she must do as I say? "Yes, right here," I say, my voice cold. "Unless you would prefer to remain in those rags." Lyra bites her lip, looking down at the dress in her hands. She seems to be weighing her options, and I can't help but feel a sense of anticipation. Will she defy me? Will she try to run? But to my surprise, she begins to undress. She turns her back to me, her slender shoulders trembling slightly as she pulls the hem of her tattered rag tunic. I can't help but feel a sense of satisfaction at the sight of her submission. But then she turns to face me, her cheeks flushed and her eyes filled with fear. "Are you going to watch me?" she asks, her voice barely above a whisper. I feel a surge of anger at her audacity. How dare she question me? How dare she challenge my authority? "Put the dress on, human!" I roar, my voice echoing through the cavernous room. Lyra's eyes widen in fear, and I can feel her power surging again. It's a strange feeling, this boost of strength and power that filters through the air and soaks into me. And I can't help but feel a sense of excitement at the prospect of harnessing that power for my own gain. But for now, I must bide my time. I must earn her trust, make her believe that I am her ally. Only then can I truly begin to unlock the secrets of her power. I watch as Lyra discards her soiled tunic, revealing her perfectly round ass and peculiarly captivating contours. She slips into the golden dress, her figure quivering slightly as she tugs it down over her bare flesh. The fabric clings to her like a second skin, emphasizing every feature. For a fleeting moment, I can't help but experience a hint of desire. "You look adequate," I say, my tone icy. "Now come closer." Lyra hesitates for a moment, her gaze darting around the room. But then she takes a deep breath and strides towards me, her chin held high. I sense her power escalating once more, and I can't help but feel a rush of exhilaration. She's undeniably terrified, and whenever she feels fear, her power appears to amplify. Over the next few days, I watch as Lyra grows more comfortable in my lair. She still jumps at every sudden noise, but she no longer cowers in fear at the sight of me. Instead, she watches me with a wary curiosity that I find oddly endearing. I continue to lavish her with finery from my hoard, presenting her with dresses made of silk and velvet, necklaces adorned with precious gems, and rings that sparkle in the dim light of my lair. She accepts each gift with a quiet grace, her eyes widening in wonder as she examines the intricate details of each piece. But even as I spoil her with luxury, I can't help but instill fear in her. It's a necessary evil, I tell myself. I need her terror to fuel my strength, to keep me sharp and focused. And so, I make sure to remind her of her place in my world, to keep her on edge. One evening, as she's admiring a particularly stunning necklace, I approach her from behind, my footsteps silent on the stone floor. She doesn't hear me coming until I'm right behind her, and she lets out a startled gasp as I reach out to touch her shoulder. I spin her around and place my claws around her neck. "Little human," I say, my voice low and husky. "Never forget who you belong to." Lyra's eyes meet mine in the reflection of the mirror, and I can see the fear flickering in their depths. But there's something else there too, something that I can't quite put my finger on. It's a look that I've never seen before, and it sends a shiver down my spine. I understand, she says, her voice barely above a whisper. This is just the beginning, I think to myself. The beginning of a new era, where I will rule supreme, and Lyra will be by my side, whether she likes it or not.
Chapter 11. Lyra. Zoldryn's treatment of me is confusing, to say the least. One moment he's kind and gentle, showering me with treasures and trying to gain my trust. The next he's cruel and demanding, barking orders at me like I'm his personal slave. I've asked him countless times if I'll ever be let out of this cave, but he always brushes me off or changes the subject. Today, I decide to press the issue. Zoldryn, why can't I leave this cave? I ask, trying to keep my voice steady. He turns to me, his obsidian eyes narrowing. Why do you want to leave? He growls. I take a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts. I miss the sun, I say softly. I miss feeling the warmth on my skin and the wind in my hair. I miss being able to breathe fresh air. Zoldryn snorts, his long horns glinting in the firelight. You humans are so weak, he sneers. You can't even handle a little darkness. You belong to me now, Lyra, he says, his voice low and dangerous. And I won't let you go. I bite my lip, trying not to let his words hurt me. I don't want to run away, I say carefully. Zoldryn's eyes soften, and he lets out a low chuckle. Very well, little human. I'll take you to the surface. I can't help but feel a flutter of excitement in my chest as we make our way out of the cave. The air is cool and damp, and I can hear the distant sound of waves crashing against the shore. As we emerge from the cave, I'm greeted by a breathtaking sight. The sun is setting over the ocean, casting a warm orange glow over the small gathering of stalls and buildings at the foot of a massive volcano. Zoldryn's heavy footsteps echo through the marketplace as he stays close to me, his obsidian scales glinting in the fading sunlight. I gaze around in awe, my eyes darting from one stall to the next. The variety of goods on display is astounding, intricately carved wooden figurines, shimmering silk fabrics, and an array of vibrant fruits and vegetables. I can't resist reaching out to touch a delicate silk cloth, its softness brushing against my fingertips. Zoldryn grunts in annoyance but doesn't stop me. I cast a sideways glance at him, noting the slight curl of his lip as he watches me explore. What is this place? I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. This is our marketplace, Zoldryn responds gruffly. It's where we trade treasures and services with each other that the Elder hasn't already taken for himself. I nod, my curiosity piqued. And I hesitate. What are you? I am a dragon shifter, little human. His dark eyes bore into me. We are more powerful than you could ever imagine. As we continue to walk, I learn that the dragon shifters have their own unique currency, small gem-like stones that they call firestones. Each stone is imbued with a tiny spark of dragon fire, making them incredibly valuable. My fingers itch to hold one of the firestones, to feel the warmth of the dragon fire against my skin. But I know better than to ask. Zoldryn may be tolerating my presence for now, but I don't want to push my luck. Zoldryn watches me with amusement, his lips curling into a rare smile. This is the most you've spoken since you arrived, he comments. I blush, feeling self-conscious. Just as I'm about to ask Zoldryn more about the firestones, a dragon shifter approaches us, his eyes fixed on Zoldryn. The Elder requests your presence, he says, his voice low and urgent. Zoldryn's expression darkens, and he lets out a frustrated sigh. Very well, he growls. He turns to me, his obsidian eyes softening slightly. Stay here, little human. I'll be back soon. I nod, trying to hide my disappointment. I was enjoying exploring the marketplace with Zoldryn, despite his gruff demeanour. As soon as Zoldryn is out of sight, I feel a hand on my shoulder. I turn to see a familiar female dragon shifter. Nindra, I believe her name is, regards me with disgust, her brown eyes narrowed in anger. "What do you think you're doing, human?" she hisses. I take a step back, my heart racing. I don't know what you mean," I stammer. Nindra's lip curls into a sneer. "You think you can just waltz in here and steal Zoldryn's affections away?" she spits. I frantically search the bustling marketplace for Zoldryn, my heart pounding in my chest. I'm not trying to steal anyone's affections," I say, my voice quivering as I try to wriggle out of Nindra's grasp. Her grip on my shoulder tightens, and I wince in pain as her long nails dig into my skin. "You're lying," she snarls, leaning in closer. "I've seen the way he looks at you. You're using your human wiles to manipulate him." I try to pull away from her, but she's too strong. "I'm not manipulating anyone," I say, my voice rising in panic. I'm just a slave." Suddenly, I feel 2 more hands on my arms, and I'm pulled away from Nindra. I look up to see 2 other female dragon shifters, their eyes cold and calculating. They're dressed in fine silks and jewels, their long hair braided with gold and precious stones. "You aren't fooling anyone, rat," one of them hisses, her lip curling in disgust. The other paws at my dress, a simple linen tunic that barely covers my body. "Look at this. He's giving you his treasures and you lie to our faces?" Nindra is suddenly in my face again, her eyes blazing with anger. "I think you need to be reminded of your place here, human bitch." I feel a surge of fear and desperation wash over me, and I struggle to break free from their grip. But it's no use. I'm outnumbered and outmatched, with Zoldryn nowhere to be found. And if he was, would he even care?
Chapter 12. Zoldryn. I stride into the throne room, my footsteps echoing off the stone walls. The elder sits on his throne, his obsidian scales gleaming in the torchlight. He looks up as I approach, his eyes narrowing. "Zoldryn," he greets me, his voice a low rumble. I stop a few feet away from the throne and bow stiffly. "Elder," I say, my voice tight. He leans forward, his eyes boring into mine. "What have you learned from the human?" he demands. I bristle at his questioning, my contempt for the old shifter's leadership growing internally. I want to tell him that I've learned nothing new, that the human is as much of a mystery to me as she is to him. But I can't admit that. Not yet. "I'm still working on it," I say, my voice carefully neutral. "She's unusual." The elder snorts. "Unusual? Is that all you have to say?" I clench my fists, my claws digging into my palms. I want to lash out, to tell him that he's the one who's unusual, hoarding resources and riches while the rest of us suffer. But I can't. Not yet. The elder's eyes narrow as he leans forward, his tail swishing impatiently behind him. "You were the one who suggested we keep her alive, Zoldryn. And yet, you've made no progress in discovering information about the Vraken." I grit my teeth, trying to keep my anger in check. "I'm working on it," I say through clenched teeth. "It's not as simple as just asking her." The elder snorts. "You're the second eldest dragon shifter on this island. You should be able to handle one small human. Perhaps we should kill her, as Nindra suggested." I feel a surge of resentment at his words. He may be the elder, but he's no better than the rest of us. He hoards resources and riches, leaving the rest of us to fend for ourselves. And now he expects me to bend to his will without question. I feel a flicker of hope. Maybe he'll finally see the value in keeping her alive. "No," I say. "She could be a valuable asset to us." But the elder's expression remains unreadable. "Or she could be a liability," he says coldly. I clench my fists, my claws digging into my palms. I want to argue, to tell him that he's the one who's being short-sighted. but I know it would be futile. For now, I'll have to bide my time and wait for the right moment to make my move. I'm about to argue further when a guard bursts into the throne room, panting heavily. "Zoldryn, you're needed on the surface immediately," he gasps. "Your slave." My heart sinks. Something's happened to Lyra. I don't wait for the Elder's dismissal before I turn on my heel and sprint out of the room, my scales rippling as I shift into my dragon form. I find Lyra surrounded by a group of shifters, her dress torn and her face bruised. She's trying to fight them off, but she's no match for their strength. I let out a roar that shakes the ground, landing and shielding her with my massive wing. I glare at the shifters who are still within earshot. "Who did this?" I demand, my voice low and dangerous. One of them steps forward, a sneer on her face. "She was trying to escape," she says. "We were just teaching her a lesson." "She was trying to escape?" I stare long and hard at the one who spoke. No, he's a liar. I shift back to my human form and rush to Lyra's side, pulling her into my arms. "Are you all right?" I ask, my voice rough with concern. She nods, wincing as she touches her face. "I'm fine," she says, her voice shaking. "But they were going to—" I clench my fists, my claws digging into my palms. I want to tear them apart for daring to lay a hand on her. "She's mine!" I snarl. "No one touches her without my permission." Nindra steps forward, her eyes narrowed. "Why do you care so much about the human?" she asks. "She's just a slave." I don't answer her. I don't want to reveal Lyra's powers, not yet. Instead, I scoop her up into my arms and turn to leave. The shifters part to let me through, their expressions a mix of confusion and fear. I can feel their eyes on me as I carry Lyra away, my protectiveness stunning them all. How dare they jeopardize what I've been working at for weeks? If she had died, all would have been lost. My gaze drops to her small, trembling form as she breathes unsteadily in my arms. Her gown has been practically shredded, all of her jewelry I'd gifted her torn from her body with claw marks as evidence. Those ignorant fools, they almost ruined everything.
Chapter 13. Lyra. Zoldryn's touch is gentle as he tends to my wounds, his long fingers deftly cleaning and bandaging each cut and bruise. I wince as he presses a cloth to my cheek, but I don't pull away. There's something comforting about his touch, despite the fact that he's the one who's keeping me here. "What happened?" he asks, his voice low and gruff. I shake my head, refusing to answer. I don't want to give him any more ammunition to use against me. Zoldryn's eyes narrow, and he tilts my chin up so that I'm forced to look at him. "You are mine, little human. No one will touch you again." His claim sends a thrill through me, despite my better judgment. There's something possessive and primal about the way he says it, like he's marking his territory. But at the same time, I can't help but feel a spark of anger. I don't want to be anyone's property, least of all his. "I want freedom," I say, my voice barely above a whisper. "Not to be owned by someone else." Zoldryn's eyes flash with anger as he demands, "Why didn't you use your powers to defend yourself?" I stare at him in disbelief. "What powers? You're insane." He grabs my wrist, his grip tightening as he growls, "Don't lie to me!" I try to pull away, but he's too strong. "I don't know what you're talking about," I cry out, my voice trembling with fear. Zoldryn's eyes narrow, and he leans in close, his breath hot against my face. "You will tell me everything, or I will make you regret it." I feel a surge of anger and defiance. "You can't make me do anything," I spit out. Suddenly, Zoldryn's lips are on mine, rough and possessive. I'm too shocked to react at first, but then I feel a strange warmth spreading through me. His kiss is demanding, but there's something comforting about it too. Zoldryn pulls away, his eyes blazing with desire. "You belong to me now, little human, and I will protect you with my life." His lips find mine once more, the fervour of his kiss leaving no room for doubt. His hands, those strong, capable hands, roam across my body with an urgency that sends shivers down my spine. I feel the fabric of my dress give way under his touch, the sound of tearing cloth echoing in the cavernous room. I gasp as the cool air touches my newly bared skin, but the heat of Zoldryn's body is a furnace against me, stoking a fire within that I never knew I possessed. My initial resistance to his touch, to his claim over me, is a distant memory, washed away by the tide of desire that now courses through my veins. "You are mine, Lyra," he murmurs against my lips, his hands cupping my face, his thumbs gently caressing my cheeks. Mine to cherish, mine to keep. I find myself nodding, my hands clutching at his muscled arms, pulling him closer. The word mine echoes in my mind, a possessive claim that should terrify me, but instead it brings a sense of security I have never known. His hands, those large, powerful hands, cup my arse and lift me with an ease that is both terrifying and exhilarating. I'm weightless in his arms, a feather caught in a tempest, as he carries me to the bed. My heart races, a wild drumbeat in my chest, as he places me gently on his lap. I'm trapped between the hardness of his body and the cool air of the cavern. My skin prickles with goosebumps, but it's not from the cold. It's from the anticipation of what's to come. Zoldryn's gaze is intense, a fire burning behind his obsidian eyes as he looks at me. The rest of this chapter is too steamy for YouTube. To get your hands on the full scene, grab the unabridged version of this audiobook from worldsofprotheka.com. With promo code YouTube30, you can even get 30% off of this book and any other digital product on the site. Let's get back to the story. There isn't much left of the world after the orcs came.
Savage. Brutal. Merciless.
If you're a woman, you're property. Even to other humans.
What happens when an orc stakes his claim on a human woman? Who would dare to stop him?
Me.
Chapter 14. Zoldryn. I stare at the jagged ceiling of my lair, my chest rising and falling with each breath I take. My body is still humming with the aftershocks of our encounter, and I can't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. But it wasn't just the physical release that had me feeling this way. It was the power that radiated from Lyra, the magic that seemed to pulse through her veins. I've never felt anything like it before, and it was intoxicating. As I lay there, I can't help but think about what this means. I'd always assumed that her power was tied to her fear, that it was something she could only access when she was afraid. But now I knew that wasn't true. Her power is tied to her emotions, and it's stronger than I could have ever imagined. I glanced down at Lyra, who was still sleeping peacefully in my arms. A vixen of a human, I decide. Her naked body is pressed against mine, and I can feel the warmth of her skin against my own. I can't help but feel a sense of protectiveness towards her, a desire to keep her safe from harm. To make sure no creature, no man discovers her powers the way that I have. As the days go by, I continue to lavish her with finery from my hoard. I watch as she tries on each piece, her eyes shining with excitement. It's a sight that I never tire of, and it's one that brings me a sense of satisfaction that I can't quite explain. I watch as Lyra's eyes light up at the sight of the jewels and trinkets I've brought her after my patrol. She runs her fingers over the delicate gold chains and precious stones, a smile playing on her lips. It's a small price to pay for the power that I know she possesses. "These are beautiful," she says, looking up at me with a sparkle in her eyes. "Thank you." I can't help but feel a sense of pride at her reaction. But it's not just the material possessions that bring her joy. I take her flying each day, soaring through the skies in my dragon form. She clings to me tightly, her laughter ringing out as we dive and twist through the clouds. At night, we share my bed. I watch as she falls asleep in my arms, her breathing steady and even. It's a feeling of peace that I never knew I needed, and it's one that I find myself craving more and more. But as much as I revel in these fleeting moments of happiness, I know that I can't afford to let them consume me. My ultimate goal still looms ahead, and I need to discover how to harness her power for my own benefit. That means getting her to trust me, to confide in me. I pepper her with question after question, revealing small truths about myself in the hopes that she'll do the same. It's a delicate dance, one that requires finesse and patience. 225, I murmur in response to her query about my age. Her eyes widen in shock, and her fingers cease their gentle tracing of the scales on my abdomen. You're over 200 years old? A chuckle escapes my lips, fueled by my growing amusement. Ah, yes. Dragon shifters have a much longer lifespan than you humans. I watch her closely, noting the surprise in her eyes. I'm only 27, she confesses meekly, her voice barely above a whisper. I feel a surge of triumph at getting her to open up, even if it's just a small piece of information. Tell me more, I command, my voice low and steady. Her brows furrow in confusion. More? She asks, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. Yes. About you. I lean forward, my elbows resting on my knees as I try to make myself appear less intimidating. She shrugs, her shoulders slumping in defeat. I don't know. I was born of 2 slaves, raised by slaves. Her voice trails off, and I can sense the pain behind her words. But you ran away, I prompt, eager for more information. Why? Her eyes meet mine with that rare spark of defiance. Would you like to live a life of servitude to an ungrateful prick? She spits out, her words laced with venom. Her cursing amuses me, but I can't help but think about my own hatred for the Elder. She and I may not be so different after all. I decide to reveal a little more about myself, hoping to gain her trust. I understand your anger, I say softly. I'm not fond of the Elder either. Her eyes widen in surprise, and I can see the wheels turning in her head. But you're next in line to become the Elder, she says, her voice filled with confusion. Yes, I reply, my voice heavy with resignation. But that doesn't mean I agree with his methods. I believe that change is necessary for our kind to survive. She nods slowly, her eyes filled with understanding. I see, she says. And what kind of change do you have in mind? I smile, my teeth glinting in the low light of the room, but don't respond. Even as we grow closer, I know that I can't let my guard down. I need to keep my eye on the prize, and that means finding out how to use her power to my benefit. And I won't stop until I do. She tells me about her childhood, about being taken from her parents and sold into slavery. She tells me about the hardships she's faced, about the cruelty she's endured. But she also tells me about the small moments of joy she's found, about the friendships she's made, about the hope she still clings to. As I listen to her, I feel a strange sensation in my chest. It's a feeling I can't quite put my finger on, but it's warm and comforting. I realize with a start that it's affection. I've grown to genuinely care for this human woman. I'm confused by my own feelings. I never expected to develop any kind of attachment to her. I'd always seen her as a means to an end, as a way to gain power and overthrow the Elder. But now, I'm not so sure.
Chapter 15. Lyra. As we soar higher and higher, the wind whipping through my hair, I can't help but feel a sense of awe at the sheer power and majesty of Zoldryn in his dragon form. It's hard to believe that this creature, who can breathe fire and fly through the sky with such grace, is the same man who has been both my captor and my protector. But ever since that night we kissed, I've seen a different side of him, a softer, more vulnerable side that makes me feel like maybe, just maybe, I can trust him. As we reach the peak of the volcano, Zoldryn lands gracefully on a ledge, shifting back into his human form. He offers me his hand, helping me down from his back, and I can't help but feel a flutter of excitement at the touch of his skin against mine. "So," I say, trying to sound casual as I look out at the breathtaking view, "what exactly are dragon shifters? Where did you come from?" The sprawling island where beach is met by lapping waves, and the sight of the lush tropical forest all look so small from up here. Zoldryn's expression softens, and he takes a deep breath before answering. "We are an ancient race, Lyra. Our people have been around for thousands of years, long before humans even existed." I turn to face him, my eyes wide with curiosity. "And your magic? How does that work?" He smiles, a rare sight that makes my heart skip a beat. "Our magic is tied to the earth, to the elements. We can harness the power of fire, water, air, and earth to do our bidding. Just like any regular dark elf." "That's amazing," I breathe, feeling a sense of wonder that I haven't felt in a long time. "And your duty? What is it that you're supposed to do?" Zoldryn's expression grows serious, and he looks out at the horizon, his eyes distant. "Our duty is to protect the balance of the world, to keep the forces of darkness at bay. It's a hallowed responsibility that has been passed down through generations of dragon shifters." I nod, feeling a sense of respect for this man who carries such a heavy burden. "And what about the Elder? What's his role in all of this?" Zoldryn's jaw clenches, and I can see the anger simmering just beneath the surface. "The Elder is our leader, but he has grown weak and complacent. He cares more about his own power than the well-being of our people." I can feel the tension radiating off of Zoldryn as he speaks about the Elder, and I decide to steer the conversation in a different direction. "How did you come to be?" I ask, genuinely curious about the origins of the dragon shifters. Zoldryn's expression softens, and he takes a deep breath before answering. "We were created by the Hearthkeeper, our goddess, with the sole purpose of defeating the Vraken." I furrow my brow in confusion. "The Vraken? Who are they?" "They are a race of vampires that have been at war with us for centuries," Zoldryn explains, regarding me with a gaze that questions how I don't already know this. "They live underground and are sensitive to sunlight, but the most powerful among them have bat-like wings." I shudder at the thought of facing such creatures. "And the Hearthkeeper created you to defeat them?" Zoldryn nods. "Yes. She saw that we were losing the war and decided to create a new race of beings with the power to defeat the Vraken. That's how the dragon shifters were born." I can't help but feel a sense of awe at the thought of being in the presence of such powerful beings. "And you've been fighting them ever since?" "No," Zoldryn says, his voice heavy with regret. "My ancestors were outmatched by the Vraken. They were forced to flee and make a home here on Fower Island." I can't help but feel a pang of sympathy for him. But why didn't they fight back? His expression darkens. "They tried, but the Vraken were too powerful. They had the advantage of numbers and strength. My ancestors were no match for them. Many died. Now we have so few females that, for most, mating will never happen." Zoldryn's words hang heavy in the air as he explains the history of Fower Island and the dragon shifters. I listen intently, my heart racing as I try to take it all in. The thought of an ancient race of beings with the power to harness the elements is both thrilling and terrifying. "So, what does this mean for you and your people now that the glamour is gone?" I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Zoldryn's expression turns somber. "It means that we are exposed to the outside world. Protheka and Fower Island are no longer hidden from each other. Times are changing, and if we don't change with them, we'll die. I can see the determination in his eyes, the fierce resolve to protect his people at all costs. It's a side of him that I haven't seen before, and it only serves to fuel my attraction to him. Without thinking, I cup Zoldryn's face and lean forward to kiss him. His lips are soft and warm, and I can feel the heat radiating from his body as he pulls me closer. The kiss is slow and passionate, and I can feel my heart racing as I lose myself in the moment. Zoldryn lets out a rumbling growl from deep in his chest as he lifts me onto his lap. I can feel the hard muscles of his chest beneath my fingertips, and I can't help but run my hands over his broad shoulders and down his arms. "Shall we return home?" he asks me, his voice low and husky. I nod, and when we arrive at the cave, Zoldryn undresses me slowly, admiring every inch of my skin as he does so. I feel self-conscious at first, but his gaze is so full of desire and admiration that I can't help but feel beautiful and wanted. He lays me down on the bed and curls up behind me, his strong arms wrapped around me as I drift off to sleep. I feel safe and protected in his embrace, and I know that I never want to leave this place. But when I wake up on the empty stone, my heart drops. "Zoldryn!" I call out. Standing, I wrap myself in one of my many dresses and tiptoe toward the exit, calling out to him again. Before I can get very far, a clawed hand wraps around my mouth and yanks me into the darkness. Chapter 16. Lyra. When the bag is yanked off my head, I'm momentarily blinded by the sudden light. Blinking furiously, I try to make out my surroundings. It's a cave, similar to Zoldryn's lair, but there's something different about it. The air is colder, and there's a faint scent of sulphur in the air. As my eyes adjust, I see that I'm surrounded by dragon shifters. Their horns glint in the dim light, and their eyes are fixed on me with a mixture of curiosity and hostility. My heart races as I realise that I'm in trouble. "What have you done with Zoldryn?" I demand, despite the tremble in my voice. One of the dragon shifters steps forward, and I recognise her as Nindra. Her brown horns are decorated in fine chains of gold, twisted into intricate patterns, and her obsidian-scaled skin gleams in the light. She smirks at me, her brown hair falling in waves around her shoulders. "Zoldryn?" she repeats, her voice dripping with mockery. "Oh, don't worry about him. He's busy dealing with more important matters." I glare at her, my fists clenched at my sides. "What have you done with him?" I repeat, my voice louder this time. Nindra laughs, a cold, cruel sound that sends shivers down my spine. "I know your secret." I stare at her, confused. "What are you talking about?" She takes a step closer, her eyes narrowing. "The amulet, stupid girl, I know all about it." She extends a clawed finger to touch the pendant necklace Bryn gave me the night of my escape. "The necklace?" I question incredulously. She has to be kidding. Another smug look crosses Nindra's features and she states, "Of course you don't know. Humans are so ignorant." "What do you mean?" I ask, trying to keep my voice steady. Nindra laughs, a cold, cruel sound that sends shivers down my spine. "The necklace, stupid girl. It's not just a trinket. It's an ancient amulet of amplification. It magnifies power, magic, strength." I stare at her in disbelief. "An amulet?" My heart sinks as I realise that I've been played for a fool. I've been wearing a powerful ancient amulet of amplification this whole time, and I had no idea. No wonder Bryn wanted me to take it so badly. She probably didn't want Vicar to get his slimy hands on it. But before I can say anything else, Nindra continues. "Zoldryn has been using you for the amulet's magic." I feel a cold chill run down my spine. Is that why I've been feeling so weak and tired lately? Is that why Zoldryn has been so insistent on keeping me close? I try to push the thought away, but it's like a dark cloud hanging over me. I can't shake the feeling that I've been used and manipulated by everyone around me. And now I'm at the mercy of Nindra and her dragon shifter friends. I don't know what they want from me, but I have a feeling it's not going to be good. I take a deep breath and try to steady myself. I need to think clearly and come up with a plan, but before I can do anything, Nindra speaks again. What? Did you think he actually cared for you? Her smirk of satisfaction intensifies as she realizes I did. You poor stupid creature. Zoldryn wants to overthrow the Elder, but needed the amplification power to succeed. No, I tell myself, as my heart shatters behind my ribcage. He cares. He cares about me. Nindra's words hit me like a punch to the gut. I can't believe what I'm hearing. Zoldryn has been using me this whole time. For the amulet's power. I try to deny it, to tell myself that Nindra is lying, but deep down I know she's telling the truth. My heart feels heavy in my chest as I realise that I've been nothing more than a pawn in Zoldryn's game. He never cared about me, not really. He only cared about the power I could give him. Nindra's voice cuts through my thoughts. That's why he wanted to save you so badly. He had no clue that you weren't the source of amplification, that you're nothing more than a pathetic human. I feel a surge of anger at her words. How dare she talk to me like that? I may be human, but I'm not pathetic. I've survived slavery, I've escaped from my master, and I've managed to stay alive in a world full of dragon shifters. I'm not weak. But before I can say anything, Nindra offers me a deal. If you help me kill Zoldryn with the amulet, I'll set you free. I stare at her in disbelief. Is she serious? Can I trust her? I think back to Zoldryn's fierce hatred for the Elder, the way he talked about overthrowing him. It's true that Zoldryn wants power, and it's possible that he's been using me to get it. But can I really betray him like this? Can I kill him in cold blood? Isn't that what he would have done when he had no more use for you, once he discovered the amulet held the true power? I don't know what to do. My head is spinning with confusion and anger and betrayal. I need time to think, to figure out what my next move should be. But one thing is clear. I can't trust anyone in this world. Not Zoldryn, not Nindra, not anyone. I'm on my own, and I need to find a way to survive. Why not kill me and take the amulet for yourself? I say finally, my voice barely above a whisper. Nindra's eyes narrow as she studies me, her lips curling into a smirk. If it was that easy, you would be dead already. She steps closer, staring at where the pendant rests on my chest. It's enchanted to only work for whoever the wearer gives it to. I feel a sudden weight lift off my shoulders as I realise the truth. The amulet has been protecting me this whole time, keeping me safe from harm. Nindra's expression turns impatient. You can either continue to be a pawn in Zoldryn's game, or you can join me and take control of your own destiny. I hesitate, unsure of what to do. On one hand, I don't trust Nindra. She's been nothing but cruel to me since the moment we met. But on the other hand, at least she's been honest. Has anything Zoldryn has done contained a shred of truth?
Chapter 17. Zoldryn. I storm into the throne room, my long strides echoing off the stone walls. The Elder sits on his obsidian throne, a smug look on his face. You summon me? I ask, my voice laced with irritation. Ah, Zoldryn, he says, his tone dripping with false warmth. I have some unfortunate news. My heart sinks. I know what's coming. The shipwrecked survivors, he continues, are useless. They will be disposed of. Rage surges through me. My fists clench at my sides. No, I growl. Lyra is mine and will not be touched. The Elder raises an eyebrow. You care for this human? She has value, I say through gritted teeth. She is mine. The Elder chuckles, waving his hand dismissively. Not anymore. The decision has been made. 3 figures emerge from the shadows and grab me. I struggle against their grip, but it's no use. "You can't do this," I snarl. "I am next in line to become the Elder. You need me." The Elder smirks. "I don't need anyone, especially not a dragon who lets emotions cloud his judgment." I glare at him, my anger boiling over. I won't let this stand. I'll find a way to save Lyra, to save my plan. Before I can respond, the doors to the throne room burst open with a resounding crash. A group of dragon shifters drag in a struggling Lyra, her eyes widening in fear as she takes in the room. I roar furiously, trying to break free from the dragons holding me back. "Let her go!" I bellow. The Elder watches with amusement as I struggle. "You see, Zoldryn, you thought that you could kill me and become the new Elder? And even better, you thought you could use some stupid human girl to do it?" He barks out a hissing laugh, throwing his head back in arrogance. The reality sets in. He knows everything. My plan. My secret weapon. Nindra makes her entrance, her brown horns reflecting the dim light of the throne room as she follows behind Lyra. With a smug smile playing on her lips, she saunters up to me, a self-satisfied sway in her step. Before I can even react, she delivers a stinging slap to my face. "You never should have chosen her over me, Zoldryn," she hisses, her voice dripping with venom. "She isn't even special. She's just a human whore who got her hands on a powerful amulet. But you were too blind to see that." Powerful amulet? The thought echoes in my mind as my eyes flick over to Lyra. Sure enough, I see her clutching a necklace in her hand, the magical amulet that must be the source of the power I've sensed in her. Nindra yanks my face back to hers, her grip tight on my chin. "Don't look at her! Look at me!" she snaps. "You never should have wasted your time on a pathetic human who chose to betray you anyway." My heart sinks as I meet Lyra's gaze. The truth of Nindra's words is written all over her face. She has chosen a side in this battle, and it's not mine. I never considered that she would be able to do that. It never crossed my mind that she could turn on me. My hopes of using Lyra's power against the Elder have been destroyed by her apparent betrayal. But that somehow isn't what bothers me most. It's the look of hurt and confusion in her eyes that cuts me deeper than any dragon's claws ever could. The pain I see there is a knife twisting in my chest, a reminder of the trust I've lost. I can feel the anger building inside me, a burning rage that threatens to consume me. I roar furiously, trying to break free from the dragons holding me back. But it's no use. I'm outnumbered and outmatched. As I struggle against my captors, I can't help but feel a sense of despair settling over me. My plan has failed, my hopes have been dashed, and the woman I thought was my ally has turned against me. I'm left with nothing but my own regrets and the bitter taste of defeat. But even in the midst of my despair, I can't let go of the pain that burns within me. My little human, my Lyra. How could she betray me?
Chapter 18. Lyra. I can't bear to see the look of defeat on Zoldryn's face as Nindra reveals my supposed betrayal. But was I ever truly on his side? Or was I just a means to an end, a tool for him to gain power? His eyes tell a different story, and I can't help but feel a pang of guilt. "I have decided," the Elder says, rising from his throne and walking towards us. "The punishment for your insolence will be death." My heart races as the Elder approaches Zoldryn, his obsidian-scaled hand raised and ready to strike. I can't let this happen. I won't let this happen. But how can I stop him? I'm just a human, weak and powerless compared to these dragon shifters. Look at his eyes, that's when I see it. Despite his sentencing, despite everything, not once has Zoldryn looked away from me. Those eyes, those beautiful eyes, they've remained latched to me with an expression that I can only call heartache. The same eyes that have watched over me, that have taught me his culture and history, and listened to every bit of mine. And the thought of the life draining from them is too much for me to bear. "Stop!" I scream, my voice echoing through the throne room. The entire room pauses, all eyes turning to me. I can feel the weight of their gaze, but I refuse to back down. I square my shoulders and meet Zoldryn's eyes, my voice shaking as I speak. I want to be the one to kill him. Nindra laughs, a cruel and mocking sound that echoes through the throne room. Oh, how delightful! Let the pathetic human kill the mighty dragon shifter. What a fitting end. The elder mulls over my request, his obsidian-scaled fingers drumming against the armrest of his throne. Finally, he gives a curt nod. Very well, he agrees. If you can kill Zoldryn, then you will have proven your worth to me. I take a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation to come. My heart pounds like a war drum in my chest as I stride towards Zoldryn, my eyes locked on his. His own gaze is a tumultuous storm of fury and deception, never wavering from mine. The 3 shifters behind him have him on his knees. He wears nothing but a loincloth, more than he usually wears, and his hair is partly tied back out of his face so that I can look at him. You manipulated me, I declare, my voice ringing with conviction. You exploited me, all for the power you believed I possessed. You showed no mercy, no guilt. Despite my accusatory words, I can't stop myself from taking in every inch of his face. He looks as though he was carved from obsidian stone, crafted by the gods into a statue of magnificent, furious glory. His eyes glow through the dimly lit space, burning into my skin with a sensation I've come to know as pleasurable. A cruel sneer twists Zoldryn's lips, full and lush. Power, little human, is not inherently malevolent, he hisses. If your parents had possessed some, perhaps you wouldn't have been born into bondage. Even in his rage, I can't help but notice a flicker of anguish in his eyes. Could it be that he feels just as deceived as I do? Is it possible that Nindra is wrong and he too? It doesn't matter. I've made my choice. With unwavering resolve, I lift my chin. You've been using me, Zoldryn, from the start. In that instant, I hurl myself at him, my fingers clamping around his throat. I hear the sudden intake of his breath, his eyes ablaze with a sentiment so intense that I feel its tendrils coiling around my stomach. Our faces mere inches apart, I murmur my final query. Can you kill the elder with the power contained within my amulet? Zoldryn's expression shifts through a range of emotions before he responds. I thought you wanted me dead. I take a deep, steadying breath, trying to calm the frantic beating of my heart. I must be insane, I know. My voice trembles slightly as I speak the unthinkable truth. But I would rather be used by you than Nindra or the Elder. I'm not an idiot. I know they will never let me leave this place alive. Neither will I, he warns, a primal rumble underlying his words that sends a shiver racing down my spine. His expression softens then, and he reaches out to caress my cheek with the back of his finger. I flinch instinctively at his touch, but that doesn't deter him from trailing his touch along my skin in a feather-like caress. The simple intimacy of the gesture causes my breath to catch in my throat. Swallowing hard, I lift my chin defiantly and meet his gaze head-on. I don't want you to, I say simply, the words feeling like a death sentence and a new beginning all at once.
Chapter 19. Zoldryn. Nindra's growl pierces the tense silence, her impatience palpable. "Hurry up and kill him, stupid bitch!" she snarls, her eyes fixed on Lyra. But I can't tear my gaze away from Lyra. She looks stunning in the turquoise dress that hugs her curves, her hair cascading down her shoulders like a waterfall of gold. I will claim her lips once my enemies have been disposed of, I vow. The relief coursing through my veins is intoxicating, making it almost impossible to stop myself from ravishing her right here in front of everyone. Lyra slips the amulet into my hand, her fingers brushing against mine for a brief moment. "I can't do it," she announces to the others, feigning fear as she cowers away from me. You're pathetic, Nindra sneers, taking a step towards Lyra. Give me the amulet, and I'll kill the bastard myself. I clench my fists, my nails digging into my palms as I struggle to contain my rage. I won't let Nindra or anyone else hurt Lyra. She's mine to protect. I can't, she stutters, taking a step back. The Elder's growl sends a shiver down my spine, but I stand my ground, my grip tightening around the amulet. I can feel its power coursing through my veins, amplifying my strength and sharpening my senses. I don't need the amulet to send this scum to the abyss, the Elder snarls, taking a step towards me. But before he can do anything, I feel a surge of energy building up inside me. I open my mouth and breathe out a massive breath of fire, scorching the Elder and sending him flying backwards. The room erupts into chaos as dragon shifters scatter to avoid the flames. I hear Nindra screaming in rage, but I don't have time to worry about her. I need to protect Lyra. I turn to find her cowering behind me, her eyes wide with fear. I reach out and pull her close, shielding her with my body as I scan the room for any threats. That's when I see them. A group of dragon shifters charging towards us, their eyes glowing with malice. I brace myself for impact, my muscles tensed and ready for battle. But then, something unexpected happens. The amulet around my neck begins to glow, and a wave of energy pulses out from me, knocking the attackers back and sending them crashing into the walls. Now that's what I'm talking about, I say with a grin as I stalk forward to take care of the Elder once and for all. Your turn. I stride towards the Elder, my fists clenched at my sides. Your selfishness is going to be the end of us all, I snarl, my voice echoing through the throne room. You hoard resources and riches while the rest of us suffer. The Elder sneers at me, his obsidian-scaled skin glinting in the torchlight. And you think you could do better than me, Zoldryn? That you aren't just as selfish as I am? What's mine is mine, yes, I retort, my eyes blazing with anger. But you're driving the rest of us to extinction. The Elder's eyes narrow, and I can see the fury building within him. But before he can respond, a blood-curdling scream rips through the air. Lyra! I watch in horror as Nindra lunges towards Lyra, her claws bared and eyes blazing with fury. She is mine. With a roar, I transform into my dragon form, my scales shimmering in the dim light of the throne room. No one will harm my destined mate! I bellow, the sound echoing off the walls and causing several of the dragon shifters to cover their ears. All eyes turn to me in shock, and I can see the disbelief etched on their faces. I've never claimed a mate before, and certainly not a human one, but I know in my heart that Lyra is mine, and I will do anything to protect her. The amulet around my neck begins to glow, and I can feel its power surging through me. I unleash a torrent of flames at Nindra, who narrowly dodges the attack. She snarls at me, her eyes filled with hatred. You would choose a human over your own kind? She spits. Over me? I don't bother responding. Instead, I focus all my energy on defeating my enemies. The Elder, who had been lying in a heap on the floor, struggles to get up, but I quickly dispatch him with a swipe of my tail. I wrap my claws around him and, with a gurgling scream, watch as I tear the bastard in two, scorching both halves to ash. I turn my attention to Nindra's lackeys, who are cowering in fear. With a flick of my wrist, I send a blast of fire towards them, incinerating them instantly. The smell of burnt flesh fills the air, but I don't care. They deserved it for daring to harm my mate. Nindra, however, is a different story. I want her to suffer for what she's done. I stalk towards her, my eyes blazing with fury. She tries to run, but I catch her easily, my claws digging into her flesh. Please, Zoldryn, she whimpers, her eyes pleading for mercy. I sneer at her, my disgust evident. Death is too good for you, I state coldly. You will suffer for all that you have done to my human. With that, I shift back into my dark elf form and turn to the rest of the shifters. They bow their heads in submission, acknowledging me as their new leader. Chapter 20. Zoldryn. I stride over to Lyra, my heart pounding in my chest. She looks up at me with wide eyes, her lips parted in surprise. I can't help but grin as I lean down and claim her lips in a passionate kiss. She responds eagerly, her arms wrapping around my neck as she pulls me closer. I can feel the heat of her body against mine, and it sends a jolt of desire through me. As we kiss, her hand slides up my chest until it finds the amulet. She tugs it gently and murmurs, "For safekeeping." I chuckle, amused by her slyness, but let her pull it over my head. "Oh, is that so?" I say, pulling back and looking down at her. She grins up at me, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "I was only letting you borrow it," she says, tucking the pendant between her full breasts. I look around the throne room, taking in the destruction that has been wrought. The elder's body lies in a heap on the floor, his obsidian-scaled skin charred and blackened. Nindra's lackeys are nothing more than piles of ash, and the rest of the dragon shifters are cowering in fear. The elder is dead, and I am your new leader. Inform the others of my victory and make sure they know that I will not tolerate any dissent. The dragon shifters nod their heads in submission, their eyes downcast. "Yes, my lord," they murmur in unison. I turn back to Lyra and take her hand, pulling her close. "And as for you," I say, my voice filled with amusement, "do you think that you will get away with your betrayal?" Her expression twists into a defiant pout. "You betrayed me first, Zoldryn." I grab her by the ass and lift her into my arms, smacking her cheek swiftly and smirking at the echoing sound of her yelp. "That's my lord to you, woman," I command as I carry her toward the throne. "You deserve to be punished." "Then so do you," she shoots back. I grip Lyra tighter, her defiance stoking the fire within me. "You will learn your place," I growl, my voice a low rumble that vibrates through us both. With a swift motion, I bend her over the throne, the cold stone a stark contrast to the warmth radiating from her skin. The dress she wears is no match for my strength, and with one sharp tug, I rip it open, bearing her to me. The sight of her, the scent of her, it's intoxicating. "Look at you," I murmur, my fingers tracing the curve of her spine, eliciting a shiver from her. "Already so eager for me. And as eager as you are to hear what happens next, YouTube simply won't allow it. I know. If you were looking forward to this even half as much as I was, well, then you'll grab the unabridged and uncut Captive Hearts audiobook from worldsofprotheka.com. As a little incentive to convince you to let me do whatever I please to my little human mate, use code YouTube30 and get 30% off of any digital product you find on worldsofprotheka.com. Don't keep me waiting. Orcs, gargoyles, vampires, ice monsters, demons of the dark. These beasts seek war, destruction, and power. And there's only one thing that can tame them.
Love.
This is your chance to get the uncut and unabridged audiobook bundle.
No detail is spared.
Use discount code YouTube30 for an additional 30% off of the already discounted price.
Go to worldsofprotheka.com.
Get access to countless audiobooks and discounted bundles where I talk you through every last scene.
Protheka's magic is eternal. Audio bundles will make it immersive. Chapter 21. Lyra. The morning of the mating ceremony arrives, and I can't help but feel a mix of excitement and nervousness. I've grown to care for Zoldryn, despite his rough exterior and the fact that he initially kept me as his slave. He's shown me kindness and protection, and I've come to see him as more than just a dragon shifter. As I get ready for the ceremony, I can't help but notice that I still wear the amulet pendant that Bryn gave me when I escaped slavery. Zoldryn seems unbothered by it, and I'm grateful for that. I've grown attached to the necklace, and it holds a special place in my heart. The ceremony proceeds perfectly, with no problems or objections as Zoldryn and I exchange vows of eternal devotion. I can feel the power of the mating bond taking hold, and I know that I'm making the right decision. After the ceremony, Zoldryn scoops me up in his arms and takes flight. We soar through the sky, higher and higher, until we reach the island's highest point. The view is breathtaking, and I can feel the presence of the goddess nearby. Zoldryn sets me down on a ledge, and I briefly wonder if he's going to screw me in his dragon form. I realise with that thought that I wouldn't be entirely opposed to trying it. Despite Zoldryn's succession into leadership, he has spent an absurd amount of time in bed with me, and I bear the marks to show it. Come to me, my human. I turn around, realising that he has shifted back into his dark elf form. I embrace him naturally. His fingers trace the contours of my body, setting my skin ablaze with each caress. Our lips meet in a fervent dance, tongues entwined, breaths mingling. Zoldryn's hands work deftly, peeling away the layers of my clothing, each piece falling away to reveal more of me to the cool air and his scorching gaze. You may have started out as a means to an end, he murmurs against my mouth, his voice a low rumble that sends shivers down my spine. But now you are so much more than that. You will rule by my side, Lyra. His words resonate within me, stirring a whirlwind of emotions. I am wanted, needed, cherished, a far cry from the life I had known. As he lowers me onto edge of the volcano, his hands continue their exploration, igniting a trail of desire that pulls deep within my core. Well, it looks like this particular scene is just a little too spicy for YouTube, if you know what I'm saying. To get the full, unabridged audiobook and listen free of interruptions and ads, find Captive Hearts on worldsofprotheka.com. With discount code YouTube30, you can get 30% off of any digital product. That includes ebooks and audiobooks that are entirely ad-free. Now, where were we? As we lay there, panting and spent, Zoldryn leans down and kisses the brand, the first initial of his name surrounded by beautiful vines. Mine. Yours. I agree before lowering my hand to caress my stomach. As is he. His gaze drops toward my belly, and understanding flashes through him. You're sure? I nod, grinning. I'm with child, my love. Your child. He grins, pulling me on top of him and kissing me passionately. Then you both shall rule by my side, little human mate. I sigh in content, but can't resist speaking up again. Zoldryn. Yes? With a mischievous grin of my own, I meet his gaze. I want you. A deep, guttural growl erupts from deep in his chest. I want to impregnate you with as many children as possible. I straddle him confidently, looking my mated dragon shifter in the eye, only just beginning to understand the extent of my power over him. Then take me, Zoldryn. He grins devilishly, and I know I have him exactly where I want him, between my legs for the rest of our immortal lives.
In a world of elves, demons, and liches.
What would you choose?
Power?
Or passion?
Would you stab the monster in the back?
Or take him to bed?
The Immersive Fantasy Audiobook Bundle has it all.
Go to worldsofprotheka.com to get access.
Use code YouTube30 to get an additional 30% off.
Protheka's magic is eternal. Audio bundles will make it immersive.